What's going on, amazing people of the web that is worldwide? I'm Joe Roscoe, co-host of Move Fast Lift Heavy podcast. Thanks for joining us. If it's your first time joining us on the pod, subscribe, rate, like it, share it with your friends if you're into it. Be like, yo, you know that jacked CrossFitter Christian Harris? Yeah, Move Fast Lift Heavy. Yeah, he's got a podcast. You should listen to it. You know, simple like that. Spread the love. We'd appreciate it. If you've been listening to the podcast a lot and you're still here, we appreciate you all the more. All right. Yeah, let's just get into it. Co-host, founder of Move Fast Lift Heavy. I was going to give him his cutesy intro, but I've given it so many times now. Like, let's just bring on the boss. Hey, boss. What's up, bro?
What up, man?
You know,
I would say it's a little... It's stale now, right?
It's not stale. I don't want it to come across as false flattery, you know? Like, I truly mean the man, the myth, the legend. I truly mean calves as big as bowling balls. You know, I mean all that stuff. I mean it.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good to see your face again. Just saw it about 20 minutes ago, but I guess I can do with seeing it again. If you're listening on a podcast platform and you want to see the man, Christian Harris, you want to see us do this interview with our guest that we'll bring on in just a second, go to youtube.com/Move Fast Lift Heavy, and you can be a part of the fun. So Christian, we were at Wodapalooza about a week or so ago, and there was a booth there that looked quite appealing, interesting, new brand to me that's breaking into the scenes. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about that. And then you could get into introing our special guest for the pod.
Yeah, so I'd say it's about a month ago, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, that I started to see some stuff on social about, I guess, just teasers. My agent Cooper, half of my agent duo, posted something on Instagram on his story. It was just a picture of like a silhouette of a shoe with like some graphics over it, and I immediately hit him up. I was like, "What's up with this?" He's like, "Yeah, new shoe company, whatever." So like I started following, and then over the next few weeks, up until Wodapalooza, I started seeing some very cool imagery and just teasers and mood boards that they would put out. And this is before I even knew they were going to be at Wodapalooza. And then when we got set up, right across from us, there they were. So I'm going to bring on our next guest, and he'll talk a little bit more about that. But our next guest is Ben Massey. He is the founder of Rad Global.
What's up, Ben?
What's up?
Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
Where are we calling in from?
I'm currently in London.
Yeah, what's going on in London today?
Today was a good day. We launched at WIT, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. But it went well. So I'm feeling happy. The sky is blue. You know, all the good things.
All right. No rain in London today. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Was Miami the launch for US?
Yeah. So Miami was the launch. That was the first time you could get it. And then the Thursday after was when the website went live.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we kind of did it that way.
All right. There it is. There you have it.
So I was chatting with you before we hit record here and started streaming on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about your CrossFit background, how you got into the sport. You weren't just your normal class attendant, someone that just popped on in. You have some major accolades under your belt as a competitor. You did some cool things. Tell us just a little bit about that.
So throughout my sort of teenage years, I would skate I would surf, and I would play rugby. And when I was about 13, I made a decision, and it was like, do I skate or do I play rugby? And I chose rugby, which was a terrible idea because it broke my body. But it was fun at the time. And I played sort of to a reasonably high level until I was 17. And then I just kept getting smashed. And I was just like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And I sort of stopped all sport and kind of had no direction. Up to that point, I'd done sport, pretty much every day of my life. It was one of those things that my parents were like, sport's good, go do it. I was like, okay, cool. I went through this phase of like not really knowing what to do, and I just joined a gym, a local Globo gym, and would do your standard like bodybuilding type stuff. And someone introduced me to Olympic lifting, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I enjoy this. And I focused on like Ollie lifting and the sort of power lifts, I guess, like squatting, deadlifting for a couple of years. And then someone was like, oh, you should try CrossFit. And of course I was like, oh, nah, that's not me. I'm good.
Don't we all have that story? It's like, you should try CrossFit. Like, I don't know about that one.
And so it was like, they had to like reel me in. And it was probably a year later, like 2010, I tried my first workout, and I feel like it was maybe Helen, the 400-meter run, 21 swings, 12 pull-ups, and I died. It took me like 15 minutes, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, CrossFit is terrible. I'm never doing that again. Fast forward a year, then there was that 2011 Open that was like 7 minutes of burpees, and I was like, oh, burpees, they look easy. Yeah, I'll smash that, and got a terrible score on that. And again, I was like, I'm not doing CrossFit ever again. But then it was just like there was lots of people sort of in the Globo gym that were doing it, and it was kind of like a way of having friends to train with them. And I, from that moment, sort of halfway, like June, July of 2011, I really got into it, and to the point where the gym was getting pissed off at me making a racket and dropping barbells next to the old ladies on their cross trainers, and they were like, basically, you need to leave.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start an affiliate. And so it kind of grew from there. So
I guess that was not where I thought you would turn that story. It's like, oh, I kind of was into it. I was getting yelled at a commercial gym. So, I just started my own.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Like there was one CrossFit gym, and it was in central London. So it just wasn't practical. It was like 40 minutes to get there, you do your class, and it'd be 40 minutes to get back. So to train, it was like 2 hours, and you would only be training for an hour of it. And so I just wanted a place to train. I got fully sucked into, training all day, every day, and was like, how can I do that? And the gym was the way to do that. I could coach, I could earn money, and I could train. And it kind of, at first it was a lifestyle piece. I think people, certainly around that time, like getting into CrossFit, you weren't doing it to be like mega rich or to like go to the games or whatever. It was like, this is a lifestyle and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And, I think as I started to train more, I kind of found I was like quite good. And I competed at it was called the London Throwdown. I don't know if this story ever made it over to the US, but I'm sure Jack won't mind me saying, there was this, it was like probably the biggest competition in Europe outside of regionals. And this year in 2013, they had hired out the Copper Box, which was like a massive arena that was used for the Olympics, used for the 2012 Olympics. And I think it was like handball or something. So the floor was sprung. So it was like a sprung floor, right?
Yeah.
And the second event on day one was a max complex of clean front squat jerk. And then people just dropping bars and making holes in this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that was like my first taste of competition. I was like, fuck, this is awesome. And then I was like, oh no, we've smashed this floor.
Yeah.
And it got into the news because the following day, that was right, it was a netball arena. The following day, there was meant to be England versus someone in like the finals of Europe, and they had to cancel the game because we'd smashed the floor up.
Wow.
So that was like the first time I competed, and I sort of, I guess, met the community for the first time. You know, at that time, all the good athletes lived in the north of England. Like that's just where they were. I don't know why it was. Like Stephen Fawcett, you've probably heard of Steve. He lives up there, and he kind of built a sort of mecca to go to, and that was where you would go if you wanted to be good at CrossFit. You'd go to the north, and London's in the south, and you know there wasn't really anyone that I knew of that was good. And that at that competition is where I met the regional athletes, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to go to regionals. And from there, I kind of got the bug. So there was a few years of I qualified in 2014 regionals, and then 2015, 2016 was injured, and then I went to the games as part of the first British team in 2017. That was kind of like my sort of competitive career, I guess.
Nice.
Which I think, Chris, you were on the demo team that year, I think.
No, that was a little bit later. I believe it was 19.
Oh, you were 19.
Yeah, 19. Because that following year, that's obviously COVID, and here we are, still in COVID.
So you make the games in 2017. You said the first British team to do so?
Yeah. So we were like the first British team, and we did, you know, we did really well. Like in regionals, we set a few records, which was cool. We were the last weekend, so we could kind of see like what was possible, and our goal was to just like try and beat, you know, the records in each event. And we went in like feeling really good. The first day went well. Like we won the first event, the run swim run, and we were like buzzing. We were like, okay, it's on, you know. And
that was the first year of four person, right?
Yeah, no, that was still 6. So but it was the first year in Madison.
Oh, okay, got it.
The following year they went to 4, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and we were buzzed. We were like, okay, it's on. Like we've trained really hard. I think at the end of day 1 we were maybe like 3rd, and then day 2 came around, and the first event was an obstacle course, and it was really cold, like really cold, and people's hands were just like they couldn't grip anything.
Yeah. And
one of our girls, poor thing, she just couldn't hold on to anything. Like, so we got to monkey bars, and in practice, she was always the first to go through everything. She was just like amazing. And she got to the monkey bars and couldn't progress. So we like came last in that event. And that was like, for our mindset was just, how can it be like taken away from you like that, you know? And I think that was probably like put a dampener on the day, the weekend slightly, because we never really managed to then
bounce back.
Yeah. you know?
Yeah.
Not to like make it super dramatic, but it was just like, oh shit, like it's gone.
Well,
yeah.
You still accomplished a major feat by being the first British team to qualify for the games, and I'm sure you have great memories anyways, regardless of that. While you were competing, did RAD start to creep its way into your mind? Was this like progressing as you were competing, or was this something that happened once you were done? How did the evolution of RAD come about?
Yeah, great question. So when I got back from competing, I kind of had that moment, I think a lot of athletes kind of talk about it, don't they? They get to like the peak and they think all these amazing things are going to happen to them after they've reached the goal, and then it never comes. And you're kind of sat there waiting like, oh, I don't know. I had this vision of, like I would then carry on training and stay and go back to the games again multiple years. And after the games, I was just like, I'm done. I like didn't train for months. I didn't train for like 7-8 months. I was just like, I'm done with that. And during that time, I think it was a moment where I really assessed what I wanted to do. I loved the gym and I loved the people and I loved training, and I knew I wanted to be involved in the space, but it felt like I had reached like the ceiling in what I was doing at that time. And so I kind of started to think, how can I tie all my sort of passions together throughout the things I've done into a new kind of venture. And before I opened the gym, I worked for a clothing company called Bathing Ape, which is like a streetwear brand from Japan.
Very familiar, yeah.
And so I kind of was that. So I love trainers, I love like apparel, and I wanted to kind of bring a new brand to the space. That was like, okay, it feels like I should do a brand like that. That kind of.
Sorry to interrupt. What did you do for Bathing Ape?
So I started when I was at high school. I started working there, and they thought I was older than I was. So like about 6 months in, I think I had my 17th birthday, and they were like, "Oh, we thought you were like 20." I was like, "Oh, sorry." They were like, "We wouldn't have hired you." But I just kind of worked there on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'd do like half days, and then I'd do a full day on the Saturday. And then I left school and I worked my way up to eventually I was managing Europe or the European store. And that was what I was doing before I started the gym, basically.
Gotcha.
So it was almost like a sort of moment where I combined the two things I've done previously to start RAD. It was like footwear and apparel and then training. How could I bring those two things together? And that's when I came up with it needs to be a brand. I felt like as a brand you can do anything. It can be whatever you want it to be, and you can create it, and you can be quite fluid with how you present that and how you engage with people, whether it's your product or your positioning or whatever.
What's your background? So you worked at the store that I'm not familiar with. Surprise, surprise, Christian. But this is just an inside joke about Christian being cooler than me and the world, really, about all things fashion and music.
Very cool. But the talk about Chris was how handsome he was in real life.
I appreciate it.
Oh, don't tell him that. Don't tell him that, Ben. What was your background like? Did you go to school for business, fashion, marketing? Did you have any type of training or education that helped you launch this brand? Or did you just take a leap and just go, tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
What made you ready for this or not, if you just jumped?
I think I'd always, my dad's, he works in the film industry, and he's a director, and he has no training in that space. No like official training. He like started at the bottom and worked his way up. And I think in these industries, you can go to like business school, or you can go to like fashion school or whatever. And I think it helps, but I think no matter what, you're probably going to start at the bottom and work your way up anyway. And so I didn't go to college. I finished high school and then started working. And my mindset was, well, the things that I'm interested in and the things that I'm passionate about, like no kind of study or college is really going to help me get there other than doing it and like living it in that moment. And so, everything around this brand has been, just not luck, but kind of what I've thought in my head or how I would go about something. It's not like super planned out. There's a vision that you have, but the path is always all over the place, isn't it? And I think I am lucky that I've kind of found the way there. And I'm sure there's plenty of ways that I could have got to this moment, and maybe, if I'd known a bit more, it would have been faster or whatever. But equally, I think by not having a preconceived idea of how it should happen meant that when things got hard, I would just keep pushing forward, because everything was a new experience anyway. So I wasn't sure of how it should be going. So it's probably a good thing that I didn't know really what I was doing.
Tell us, zoom in on that a bit. Like, what were some of your mistakes or highs and lows of, oh, I can't believe I did that, and because I did that, I learned this lesson?
I think the biggest thing, which I'm really acutely aware of now, is the list of things that I now know about footwear and starting a brand, that if someone had presented me with before doing it, I would have just gone, this is impossible. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. There's just too much, it would be overwhelming. And so I think probably like just that lack of knowledge has helped me to keep moving forward, because I didn't know like whether something was going wrong. I think there hasn't been like a specific moment where I've been like, oh shit, like I don't want to do that again because XYZ will happen. But I think it has really taught me that it's probably going to keep getting worse when you think it can't get any worse.
Yeah.
Right.
So like COVID obviously we were about to fly to a factory to start production, and then COVID came and everything shut down. And so it was like, okay, I've got funding for this much amount of time, because I basically sold the gym, and all the money I had from the gym I put into this business. And it was like I had a runway, and I knew that once I reached a point, I would just have to stop it because I had no more cash. It wasn't because I wanted to, I just had no more cash. And it was always a case of going through the like trouble spots and trying to figure out how to get out the other side, but not necessarily knowing what good looked like on the other side. You're just constantly like coming new challenge. Okay, I'll get past that one. New challenge, get past it. So I think it's more like learning that you just have to be relentless in everything you're doing.
Persevere, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, from the time that you said, all right, this is what I'm going to do, to having your first physical sample that you can feel and touch and try, and, how long was that process
That
from
was
inception to having your first sample?
2 years. What year is it? It's 2022 now, right?
We're in 22.
We had the first prototypes that you could wear were in May 2020. No, June 2021. That was the first time that you could put the shoe on.
Gotcha.
And then, yeah, I started like working on the brand in January 2019. Yeah.
Now, from that first sample to what we see now, how many revisions have there been, or how many changes have there been?
I don't want to admit it.
Yeah, no, that's what we're here
for. I think we went through. So when you're building a shoe, the first part you start with is the last. So like this is the last. So like this old, like you see them in the cobblers, like an old wooden last. Like this is like your blueprint. Everything builds off of this. And getting that right took a lot of time, in terms of how we wanted it to fit through the foot, like how much heel to toe drop we wanted, all those kind of things. That took like 6 revisions, and a big brand would probably do it in like 3, because they have an
previous
of lasts that they've used before, and they know that they can combine X, Y, Z, and that'll give them a fit or performance that they're after. So that was probably like one of the slowest parts. And then once we were happy with
what were you, sorry to interrupt, what exactly were you looking for in that?
So I like a shoe that gives you support. And I'm sure people are going to jump on the podcast and say, that guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's fair enough. But for me personally, I like a shoe that like locks my foot down. I don't like having a big wide toe box. I don't like how it feels. I actually feel more unstable, and so it was about finding or a fit that you felt like you could almost brace against when you're lifting, or when you're doing your plyometric work, and gives you feedback from the ground. And I feel like when they're too baggy through the toe box, I feel like you don't get that support or that feedback. So it was about getting the right balance of, locking the foot in place, but still allowing it to kind of move when you're doing a bit more the dynamic, lateral side to side movements and things like that.
For sure. I mean, I could speak to it. I had a chance to get my hands on a pair. Obviously, if you guys know me and follow the brand, I'm a Reebok guy. But I did have a chance to feel and wear the shoe, and it's got a very nice snug feel to it. It's very supportive, just like Ben's saying. So definitely can agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was, there's lots of different schools of thought, aren't there? Some people love the wider toe box, or like the freedom of the feet, and that's cool. There's other brands that offer that, but for Rad, we wanted to be a bit more in that sort of performance realm, I think. So that's where we spent a lot of time getting that right, because we knew once that was good, we could kind of aesthetically or visually make it however we wanted. And that's where the fun comes in. It's like the boring, when you're doing like, you're painting your house or whatever, like doing the edges and like doing, all that stuff is like really boring, right? That's like what doing the last is like. And then you get to like paint everything and do whatever you want.
I'll bring up a photo of a recent post from rad_global, your Instagram page. got these cool shoes here in the sticker collection that you guys were talking about. Go ahead and highlight what do you love about the process? What is, besides the nitty gritty day in and day out grind, what is the thing that keeps you coming back?
I think I love that you can hold and feel and touch a shoe. I think that I've always been drawn to that, There's like people like love bits of art or whatever. And I'm not saying shoes are art, but for me they are.
Yeah, I think they definitely
I'd agree with you on that. Yeah.
I think they certainly are.
And I think it's really, they're like wearable bits of art, and I think for me, like the biggest buzz of the Wodapalooza weekend was on day one, there was like no one wearing the shoe. And then by the fourth day, you're looking every direction and people have got the shoe on and you're like, oh shit, there's people like walking around in these. And that for me has been like the biggest highlight, is seeing people wearing them. And like the DMs we've got and emails we've got of people like going out of their way to say how much they like the shoe. Like I wasn't really ready or expecting that. I was almost like surprised at how nice people are about the product,
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely what kind of keeps me coming back. And plus, I think, the thing that's exciting is when we were designing the silhouette, we were very conscious of being able to keep it fresh, so like the upper materials we use, we have a microfiber, which is kind of like a synthetic suede. Like we've used that on the shoe. It's quite like lifestyle-y, but the way in which you can color that up means the possibilities of the wearability of the shoe are endless, and I think that's really exciting, like knowing what colors are coming, in the next year. Like they're very different, but they're very wearable. We're drawing inspiration from lots of different genres and sports to kind of feed into the brand so that, yes, it performs the way everyone would expect it to, but also that you could wear it in kind of any kind of situation, any kind of like lifestyle or casual situation. And that's exciting.
Yeah. So not to get you to like give us anything that's like disclosed information or anything like that, but comparing to like other shoe brands out there like the Metcon or the Nano, where every year they have an entirely different shoe, is that something that you guys are going to potentially have into your repertoire, or are you guys going to stay a little bit more consistent with the shoe?
In the model or in the number of models?
I would say in the model.
Yeah, so what will initially, the ramp up will be a little bit slower, but our goal is to every 2 years we change the bottom of the shoe. So that's the tooling. So like every 2 years we change the bottom. Like that's the most expensive part of making a shoe, is your bottom part, because you have to buy a mold for each size and half size. So every 2 years we'll change that, and then every year we'd look to change the upper. And that's kind of how we would flow through it.
You said every year on the upper?
Yeah, eventually. I think to start with, it will probably be like 18 months on the upper and 3 years on the tooling. But we'd like to get to that point where we're changing it pretty regularly. I think, there's changing it for changing its sake, and there's changing it for improvements. One of the big things that we want to incorporate into the brand is a lot of research and development into material sciences and how we can pick materials that are perhaps less damaging from an environmental impact standpoint. So, if there's a new foam that becomes available, but for our midsole, but we can only use a certain method to construct the shoe, then we would make that change sooner. Or if there's a new material that becomes available for the upper, again, we would try and introduce that sooner rather than later. So we're kind of being a bit fluid with it at the minute. But I think as a new company, you have to be, you know, you have to kind of be ready to pivot when it feels right, not necessarily when you've written down in your notepad, oh, at this point, this is when we do this. It's like, oh no, actually this point is right now and it feels right. So let's do it.
Right.
Yeah. It's like training.
Cool.
Go off the feel.
but like, I am convinced if you are good at training and consistent, you'll be good in business. Like the lessons I've learned in training from a mindset standpoint that then carry over into what I'm doing from a business standpoint, they're just like so powerful. You know, I think people underestimate that.
No, yeah, definitely the discipline and lessons learned in training can always be applied to life lessons for sure. Ben, appreciate all this insight. I'm really excited for you. Really love that little story about how no one was wearing the shoe in day one, and then day 4 of Wodapalooza, you saw it everywhere, and you know how special that was to you as a fellow entrepreneur. Like, yeah, that's when the dream comes true, right?
Absolutely.
Christian, why don't you put Ben on the hot seat here, and we'll wrap it up.
All right, sir. We've got a few questions for you. First thing that comes to mind, short answer form is the best. You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm nervous.
All right, let's get into it. Would you rather move fast or lift heavy?
Move fast.
Coffee or pre-workout?
Coffee.
This will be an easy one for you. Favorite current sneaker?
Rad. One.
If you could pick one movement to do for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Snatch.
Current favorite song?
Oh no, Ed Sheeran and Stormzy. I can't remember the name though.
All right, there it is. That's it. That's all I got for you.
That wasn't as bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. I think I'm gonna have to make some more questions.
I was very surprised about the shoe answer. I wasn't expecting that. Wait, Ed, Sheeran, and who?
Stormzy.
Let's see. Storm.
Or maybe it's Stormzy and Ed Sheeran.
Take Me Back to London.
Banger.
That's the one. Take Me Back to London.
Wait, let me see.
Or is it Own It?
Yeah, Own It. Own It.
Own It. All right.
It. Yeah.
Christian, another song to add to your collection.
Do you know Stormzy? Not know him, but have you heard of him?
Now, don't get us.
I have not, but I'm about to look into it now.
So Stormzy is like, he comes from quote unquote grime music, but like South London music. It's like, that's like his background, but he's really cool. Really cool.
Okay.
Dude.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
He's awesome.
Word. All right. Ben, appreciate you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
We might have to hit another one and continue this conversation.
Yeah, this is one Christian could talk about for a long time. I know.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm always here.
I geek out on this stuff.
All right, we'll be in touch then. All the best to you. Hope to see you soon. Later.
Thank you.
All right. Ben Massey there. Cool guy.
Yeah. Definitely cool. Like the story of, like you were saying, no one's wearing it day 1, day 4. You look around and it's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as an entrepreneur, could definitely relate to that. Being down there in Miami and just before it even starts, just you could see the brand. You know, you see it all over the place, and it's very humbling to have people come over to the booth and just say how much they've supported the brand over the years. And even from a programming standpoint, you know, people, oh, I follow the programming, and it's one of the most rewarding things is to see it all come to life. So
yeah, 100%. All right, man. Well, I'll see you in about 15 minutes here for our next episode. I kind of said on the other one that we talked training a bit, but we'll talk training maybe on the next one. This one was jam-packed with great things about. I learned a lot about the shoemaking. I had no idea about the sole being the most expensive, and yeah, just how he was talking about. Go ahead.
There's a lot that goes into it. I had the opportunity to go to Reebok last year down to HQ, and it's kind of like what he was saying. Like, if you ever really paid close attention to the nanos, every 2 years that bottom, it's the same, but the upper is what's different on the shoe. So like from the Nano 1 to the 2, the bottoms are the same, but then the look of the shoe is actually different, and then it kind of carries that flow. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I like to be a trendsetter. So since Rad is new in the market, I might have to just hop on this little World Wide Web and order me some. Maybe Ben could advise me on what, which, I don't know if there are new colors coming out, or he can give us a lowdown. Everyone that wants to get that information, make sure you go to Instagram at rad_global and give him a follow. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where Rad goes. Christian.
Yeah, if you guys end up ordering, as per Ben's recommendation, order a half size up.
Okay, half size up. Word. All right, y'all. Later. Okay, Rad Global, Ben Massey in the books there. Joe Roscoe here, co-host of Move Fast, Lift Heavy podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. If you haven't tried our training program yet with Christian Harris, Train with CH, you can check that out. We have 3 different levels. You can get 2 sessions in a day if you want to go balls to the wall like Christian. We have a 90-minute version and 60-minute. You'll be training exactly the way Christian Harris trains. You'll also be getting feedback from him. You can submit some questions, technique videos, things like that. Check us out, movefastliftheavy.com. Until the next one, y'all awesome. Have a good one. Later.